All right.
I got it.
Got it.
AT&T.
All right. So turn to 2 Samuel chapter 20, and we're going to talk about even a good cause may have bad supporters. I think we can look around and see that, right? Chapter 20, we're going to start reading right now, starting verse 1. And there happened to be there a man of Belial, or Belial. How do y'all pronounce that? Belial. What does that mean? What does the word Belial, the name Belial, mean? Anybody? It means worthless or worthlessness. Whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, a Benjamite. So it's important that we know he's a Benjamite. Remember, we had this 10 tribes against the 2 tribes. Well, who were the 2 tribes?
Benjamin, Judah.
Judah and Benjamin. So now we have one of the 2, and this man Sheba, who is called worthless in effect, or is of that type of character, is getting ready to cause further problems for David. And he blew a trumpet and said, "We have no part in David, neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse. To every man his tents, O Israel." Like he's taking over, taking charge. It's like, who are you?
Where's chapter 20?
And I got to look into what was motivating him to do this. Does anybody have any ideas about why? What was the axe? What axe was he trying to grind here? What beef did he have with David? That he would, and what's he getting ready to do? He's trying to gather the people, blow a trumpet, and now what's he intending to do here? Has anybody read into this chapter already to see? Let's read. So every man of Israel went up from after David and followed Sheba the son of Bichri. But the men of Judah clave unto their king from Jordan even to Jerusalem. And David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 women, his concubines, whom he had left to keep the house, and put them in ward, and fed them, but went not in unto them. So they were shut up unto the day of their death, living in widowhood. It seems odd that verse is in there about the women is in the middle of this insurrection there, but there it is. And so we have the Benjamites led by Sheba having a fairly loyal following here, and we have this division in the house in the kingdom of David. Judah is being loyal to David. What do the Benjamites want?
Everything to do with Saul. They just don't like him just because still got that bad blood because Saul was Benjamin.
Yeah, there is apparently a dissatisfaction among them that the kingdom did not continue in their line. You're going to see David being referred to as someone who's simply the son of Jesse. Jesse is just who? Just a man, a nobody in effect. And the implication is that David doesn't have any particular right to the kingdom. Saul was anointed king, and the next king should have come through that line, would be their logic. And so, verse 4, then said the king to Amasa, assemble me. Now Amasa is, who is this? Amasa is the son of Abigail. Okay? Now, Abigail is, interestingly enough, an Ishmaelite. Okay? Jether of Amasa is the son of Jether, an Ishmaelite, by Abigail, I should say it that way. David's sister. So, this rebellion, he joined. The rebellion probably because he was neglected by David. I'm reading some notes here. And David he didn't join this rebellion, he joined the earlier one. But David, to atone for past neglect, pardoned and even promoted him to command the army in the room of the overbearing Joab. Amasa's slowness in crushing Sheba's rebellion, perhaps owing to the disinclination of the troops to be under his command, obliged David to dispatch Abishai with the household of guards, and Joab accompanied them. Amasa and his force overtook them at the great stone of Gibeon, which we're going to find out what happens there. So we've got Amasa, who's been put in charge over Joab. That's going to be a conflict of interest right there. Okay? He's not particularly, it seems, adept at handling things militarily. Joab's going to try to take matters into his own hands. So, verse 5, so Amasa went to assemble the men of Judah, but he tarried longer than the set time which he had appointed him. He was just always getting ready, never ready to pull the trigger. There is a thing among generals. Good generals are measured often by their ability to strike at the most opportune times. And they will say, we're going to hit the beach at this time, whether you're ready or not. There's a number of famous generals that are known for that sort of thing. Well, wait, we're not ready. You better be ready because we're going. David said to Abishai, now shall Sheba, the son of Bichri, do us more harm than did Absalom. So Abishai is who? Who's Abishai? Anybody?
Somebody's brother.
Okay, he's a nephew of David by his sister Zeruiah, and I have an unfair advantage because I'm reading it, okay? But I just want to make sure we know who we're talking about. And he was okay, I'm just going to read what it says here. Joab was more of the experienced general, Abishai the devoted champion for David. Thus, when David proposed, so Abishai is one of David's nephews who's also a fighter. And yet
He's Joab's brother, too.
Yeah, Joab's. And Joab's brother.
The man he just fired. Now he's hiring his brother.
Yes. So it's hard to keep all these names straight, isn't it? He commanded 1/3 of David's army at the battle of Absalom and rescued David when David was waxing faint, and we'll see that in the next chapter, chapter 21, when he goes up against some Goliaths. So he's definitely a warrior. Okay, so Joab and Abishai, these are the people that are really the power players on David's side here. So Amasa is this sort of figurehead person, not particularly good, who's been put in charge to go after and quell the rebellion. Now where is this rebellion headed? They're not going against David. Where are they going? What are they trying to do? Anybody? It says they're going north. What's north? What's up north?
10 tribes.
The other 10 tribes. These are they're basically taking charge and saying, look, this fight with the 10 tribes is not over. We're not okay with just being at peace with everybody. We're going to go after them because look, they insulted us. Remember in the last chapter it talked about the words of Judah were stronger than the words of Israel. Yeah, well, they were stronger, and they want to. They're going for a fight here. And David now has to take some of his forces and try to stop them from going and starting another civil war, basically. At least that's the way it seems to me. Anybody else have any other perspective on this?
In these verses, when you hear or read the word Israel, it's referring to the 10 tribes.
Right.
It's not the whole country.
Exactly right.
So you need to understand that. And first, I don't know why, but in my notes, Amasa, who was appointed right after Joab, David appointed him because he wanted to please the northern tribe. So he had connections there, and he could sense that there was a upheaval. He must have, and so therefore, just to get rid of Joab. Of course, he did that probably because Joab disobeyed David and had Absalom and killed Absalom. I'm sure that was part of the thing too. But Amasa had some kind of connection up north. That might explain why he was so reluctant to lead the force so quickly.
That's good.
Because he's cahoots with them somehow, connected with them somehow.
Right. So he's maybe working on diplomacy or something.
All kings do.
Yeah. Anybody else have any good input? That's good. Thank you. All right. So does everybody pretty well understand the dynamics going on here? Fred?
No, maybe it's just me, but I also wonder about those that might be hearing us through the video as well here. It seems like on occasion we are drawing conclusions and making statements about things that we have not read. And so I sort of feel locked out of the barn here on occasion. We need to build a foundation for what principles we are and observations we are coming up with. In other words, the approach to first read it, then interpret it, then apply it. But that's just me.
Okay, well, I think we're reading as we go here, but maybe I'm wrong about that. I'll try to do better. I'm certainly not perfect in this endeavor. So, where did we leave off?
Verse
6? And David said to Abishai, "Now shall Sheba the son of Bichri do us more harm than did Absalom. Take thou thy Lord's servants and pursue after him, lest he get him fenced cities and escape us." One of the problems with passages like this is there's so much detail here that I guess I'm afraid that if I continue reading on, then a lot of the details just get lost and forgotten. So I tend to make comments about them as I go. So we may have to come back. And there went out after him Joab's men and the Cherethites and the Pelethites and all the mighty men. And they went out of Jerusalem to pursue after Sheba the son of Bichri. When they were at the great stone which is in Gibeon, Amasa went before them, and Joab's garment that he had put on was girded unto him. and upon it a girdle, with a sword fastened upon his loins in the sheath thereof. And as he went forth, it fell out. And Joab said to Amasa, Art thou in health, my brother? And Joab took Amasa by the beard with the right hand to kiss him. But Amasa took no heed to the sword that was in Joab's hand. So he smote him therewith in the 5th rib, and shed out his bowels to the ground, and struck him not again, and he died. So Joab and Abishai his brother pursued after Sheba the son of Bichri. And one of Joab's men stood by him and said, He that favored Joab, he that is for David, let him go after Joab. And Amasa wallowed in blood in the midst of the highway. And when the man saw that all the people stood still, he removed Amasa out of the highway into the field and cast a cloth upon him. When he saw that everyone that came by him stood still. When he was removed out of the highway, all the people went on after Joab to pursue after Sheba the son of Bichri. And he went through all the tribes of Israel unto Abel, and to Beth-maachah, and all the Berites, and they were gathered together, and went also after him. And they came and besieged him in Abel of Beth-maachah. And they cast up a bank against the city, and it stood in the trench. And all the people that were with Joab battered the wall to throw it down. Then cried a wise woman out of the city, Hear, hear, say, I pray you, unto Joab, Come near hither, that I may speak with thee. And when he was come near unto her, the woman said, Art thou Joab? And he answered, I am he. And she said unto him, Hear the words of thine handmaid. And he answered, I do hear. Then she spake, saying, They were wont to speak in old times, saying, They shall surely ask counsel at Abel. And so they ended the matter. I am one of them that are peaceable and faithful in Israel. Thou seekest to destroy a city and a mother in Israel. Why wilt thou swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? Joab answered and said, Far be it from me that I should swallow up or destroy. The matter is not so, but a man of Mount Ephraim, Sheba the son of Bichri by name, hath lifted up his hand against the king, even against David. Deliver him only, and I will depart from the city. And the woman said unto Joab, Behold, his head shall be thrown unto thee over the wall. Then the woman went unto the people in her wisdom, and they cut off the head of Sheba, the son of Bichri, and cast it out to Joab. And he blew a trumpet, and they retired from the city, every man to his tent. And Joab returned to Jerusalem unto the king. Now Joab was over all the host of Israel, and Benaniah the son of Jehoiada was over the Cherethites and over the Pelethites, and Adoram was over the tribute. And Jehoshaphat the son of Ahilud was recorder, and Sheba was scribe, and Zadok and Abiathar were the priests, and Ira, also the Jerite, was a chief ruler about David. Okay, so there's the end of that chapter. So let's go back now and pick up where, around verse 6, where David says to Abishai, Now shall Sheba the son of Bichri do us more harm than did Absalom. Why do you think, and what do you think, David was getting at here? What was the problem from David's perspective? And why did he say it was worse than Absalom? Anybody?
My guess would be is that he had the potential to be able to lead the 10 tribes against David. As the story ends, it didn't seem like he had much influence at all. If he goes and hides in the city, and the city's able to take care of the problem. But at that particular point in time, it seems like David thought that I could lose 10 tribes and they could come against me here. So.
Yeah. In fact, if you think about it, from David's perspective, Judah's kind of sitting by themselves.
Really 11 tribes, if you think about it, because he's from Benjamin.
Yeah, so it would be every tribe except for Judah.
Right.
That's right. That's where he came from. That's
Plus, he
right.
might have a little bit more legitimacy, seeing as, he's from the house of Benjamin, so you've got the people who still cling to the idea that Saul was the rightful king.
That's
He
right.
has a lot more grounds than a guy who's the son of a present king who's trying to usurp the throne.
Right. So instead of a 10-2 situation, now we would potentially have an 11-1. So it is worse, even just from the numbers standpoint. In fact, we're going to see further ahead, David's going to actually number the people. I think it's kind of a confusing situation. When I was reading it, I was not sure I was understanding the whole thing, but David's going to number the people to try to double check and make sure he can actually win, it seems like. Here, David definitely knows he has to do something. And he's concerned about what's going to happen. And so, so we have this really kind of strange situation between Amasa and Joab. How Joab, this detail here about the sword falling out. It's almost like it falls out on the ground. So as he bends down to pick it up, he's bringing it up, looking like it's an innocent thing, but now it's in his hand. And he's greeting him, pulling him by the beard, and sticking it right up under his rib. It's just a morbid bit of detail here. Bob, you have a comment?
Once again, you come across that the
Fifth rib. Yeah.
I didn't land the word.
Start counting my ribs
Where
here.
hard it is. So it seems like it's because they want to make sure they get it right the first time. They don't want to stab them but once. But that was kind of, Amasa was his loyalties at times, if we read through this, were questionable at best. And I think like what they said, he probably made Amasa who he did, David did, because he wanted to have a connection to, tribe of Benjamin. But Joab didn't forget it.
That's right.
It will still get back to his mind. Well, this guy that's leading us may not really be too enthusiastic about this battle going up to get Sheba. So while the opportunity presented itself, he took the opportunity, done away with it.
It's really, when you really look at what's going on here, the scripture is giving us a lot of things to think about here. Because even after he kills him, he's laying in the middle of the road, he's still alive. It says how does it say it?
Wallowing.
He's wallowing on the ground. And Joab isn't even finishing him off. He's like, come on, let's go. And everybody's still standing there, probably in shock. Like, I don't know if I want to follow you after what I just saw you do. And so to oblige them from the visual, he comes and drags him off the side of the road and covers him up. He says, all right, let's go now.
And knowing that he was the general who David had just removed from power, what the people would have thought, along with being shocked at what happened, and then David just took you out of power. Okay?
Yeah. So there's a lot of confusion here. There's obviously this, the people don't know who to follow anymore. It's a very unclear situation. And, when you think about Amasa and his role, his prior role in relationship with the 10 tribes, did the people even trust following him to begin with? The people he's asking that he's leading were not the people that were originally. They were the ones that Joab had originally. They fought for Joab against Amasa, right?
It's called Joab's army.
Right.
So these guys, they knew Joab.
Right. So Joab had a clear connection with these people. It wasn't like from Joab's perspective. He's like, okay, guys, I got the problem out of the way. Now we can go do our job.
Yeah, but he must have had some doubt about where some of the men stood with him, because he invoked the name of the king to try to get their loyalty to the fallen. It said, verse 7, and one of Joab's men stood by him and said, he that favoreth Joab, and he that is for David, let him go after Joab. So to me, that's like he was trying to,
Exactly.
Invoke the king's name to try to curry favor
Yes.
with these men that go forward and fight with him.
Right. It's almost like Joab. You all know Joab's always defended David, so we're going to continue the mission with Joab now. David gave the orders. They were clear orders on what to do. We got to go take Sheba out. Do you see what a mess this is? Red, do you have any comments?
Yeah, just wondering, is this normal in a fallen world, or is this unusual here to have this sort of agreement and conflict when you're still apparently in transition from Saul to David? Would this be much different in other countries, or even today? You've got people with this mindset, people with this mindset. So what might be, if true, that it is sort of normal in a fallen world, what's the Lord trying to say to us through this?
Yeah. What do you think he is trying to say?
I just asked the question.
Well, we're no smarter than you are, so maybe you have some ideas. Could have been rhetorical.
We have to dwell on it a little bit, like an all-day sucker.
There you go.
Since this stuff seemed to be so tumbled up, could this be from the past, like when God told David this would never depart from his front door? I mean, it looked like everything since that time just got to be a mess. And I'm wondering if we're getting some of that here.
In light of what you're saying, Fred, and what's going on here, I'm going to project forward and try to create some curiosity on your part about the next chapters, and even into the first couple chapters, well, the first two chapters of the book of Kings, when there's a handoff from David to Solomon. And what you're going to see is several events that occur where David goes out and does some things, like, for example, there's a famine coming, and the famine seems to be related to an oversight that was not handled properly, that has to be handled, which has to do with giving up some of Saul's generation. David's going to be put in a very awkward position to have to go and get some of the descendants of Saul's and deliver them over to an enemy kingdom to be put to death, so that God will be satisfied, because they didn't handle the enemy nations properly. Now, I'm not trying to jump ahead too far. I'm just trying to create some curiosity here, that God has an intention of how He wants to rule nations. He, I believe, wants us to keep our promises with other nations. I think He wants us to deal with them in a fair way, even though they may have been prior enemies. And there's some atoning that's going to happen. But in this chapter here, we see the second half, some diplomacy going on. A wise woman offers a diplomatic solution. And it's interesting that maybe more, you may know more of this than I've had time to study out myself, that this city of Abel, well, I find it interesting that Abel, obviously who was Abel in the Old Testament? In Genesis, it was who? Cain's brother who was slain, right? So is there a connection between that Abel and what this city was known for with the man Abel that was killed? Does anybody know about that? Yes, John, Bob.
Not to digress, but to use Brother Fred's term, put a little more pain on the barn maybe. And what he asked is, just wonder in the amount of knowing us reading into the part and knowing what he has done in the past, don't you think that it's just another example in God's word that you're gonna pay for your past deeds sooner or later? In other words, what you reap, you're gonna sow. Mm-hmm. And so, that in itself may be a lesson that God's trying to show us in His word here, that with Amasa, that the thing He had done in the past, like I said, Joab didn't forget, but finally caught up with it. And so that just kind of speaks to me, just thinking about it, as after Brother Fred brought it up, is that's kind of like the Lord telling me, He said, remember, son, what you reap, you're going to sow. Mm-hmm. And that's one rule in God's word that I've never seen not happen. I mean, from the beginning to the end, when you read through His word, every time there's something to give up, like with David, He told him because of the sin he done, that the sword would not depart from his house. And there's other examples all the way through God's word. And it should say to us, that we be careful of our actions, words, and deeds every day, because sooner or later you're going to answer for them.
Yeah, that's right.
What Fred asked, is this something that's normal? I think we have to look at the situation that, David ran out of Jerusalem. And there was not he was dealing with a civil war with his son. Mm-hmm. And when there's an absence of authority, mm-hmm. then that's the fertile ground for insurrection to rise. Mm-hmm. I think, for instance, like the Roman Empire, when there wasn't a emperor present, then we had the battles. You have the battles of the generals fighting each other, trying to gain that throne. Mm-hmm. I think of even today, modern day, that when we unfortunately, one of the bad side effects, when we go into a country that removes a dictator, then that is the fertile ground for all these other groups to rise up to compete for that place. Right. And so we see that taking place here, and Joab's just a warrior. He is a warrior, and he just took care of matters. This man took his job, and he was going to, and like Bob said, he was the enemy, and once an enemy, always an enemy, and so Joab took care of it, and I haven't read the rest. I don't know if David addresses it or what, but David is. It seems like David is reestablishing himself back as king. There's the potential of the northern kingdom rising up, and so this is playing out now. He's reestablishing himself. I am the king, but until that takes place, it's fertile ground for anybody to blow a trumpet and say, "Follow me."
Right. So here, look, I started this out by saying that sometimes even a good cause may have bad supporters. The good cause was to try to prevent a civil war. David's actually having to fight some of his own people to prevent a larger war. And in doing so, Joab is going to take on that mission, but he's a bad apple in how he goes about it. He doesn't do it in a way that is appropriate. He should have supported David's commander, but he was not willing to do that. And so Joab's going to come to a hard ending himself as a result of all this. One of the things, again, I'm going to project just a little bit forward. We're going to stop earlier today because I want to come back to the last part of this chapter with what this woman does and the wisdom that she employs. But I find it interesting, and I hope you will read forward and into the first couple chapters of Kings, especially that first chapter of Kings, which we probably will not get into, so I'm just going to mention something here. David gives Solomon some advice. And you're talking about David reestablishing his authority here. He's going to give Solomon some advice. He's going to have to protect the throne for Solomon because there's another one who is trying to take over the throne. And Solomon, basically, his position and his rightful, he was said that he was going to be the king. But that's not what's going on. And Nathan and Bathsheba actually come to David and beseech him and say, I thought Solomon was going to be the king, and it's not happening. And what's going to happen in the aftermath of all of this is David gives Solomon some advice and says, you need to take care of some people here, some of my old former enemies. And even though we know that David has been a man of bloodshed, and Solomon is known for his wisdom, here, David is trying not to shed that blood, actually passes that authority on to Solomon to do. And Solomon does, in very short order, execute some people that would be problems very quickly, very efficiently, and then he has much peace from then on. So I find it interesting that there's some wisdom in knowing how to deal with the people in an efficient manner, and David just, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to be able to do that himself. But he at least is giving that advice to Solomon. So
what you're saying then, David saw that there was going to be trouble, so he told him to go ahead and take care of this before it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And Solomon wastes no time at all. Yeah. Solomon seems to be very efficient at getting things done. And I think that's the kind of person that Solomon was. Solomon prayed for wisdom, and God gives it to him. But I just wanted you to whet your appetite for that. Let's come back to the second half of this chapter, and we've just got about 5 minutes before we'll leave for the day. But this woman basically appeals to Joab, who's beating on the wall, and says, this city is known, I'm just going to put it in my own words, it's known for diplomacy. It's known for, and I'll tell you where I get that from. Verse 18, she spake, saying, They were wont to speak in old times, saying, They shall surely ask counsel at Abel. And so they ended the matter. This place, Abel, means it's a house on the waters. Abel on the waters is what it means. And it's in the north part of Palestine. Was known and seemed to be as a place where people solve problems through discourse and through working it out, not through warfare. So what's the problem? This one man. Okay, fine, you'll have his head. End of the problem. We don't need to fight. We don't need to beat the wall down. We don't need to destroy the city. And so I just find this detail, the dialogue with the woman and the detail that Scripture gives, I find it very instructive here. Does anybody want to comment on why was it a woman who did this, and where are the men at, and yet she was able to solve this problem very quickly?
What does she mean about the mother in Israel?
Which verse are you referring to?
19.
Right on the 19th.
I am one of them that are peaceable and faithful in Israel. Thou seekest to destroy a city and a mother in Israel. Yes, this city is known for being. I think the idea is that this is an old, well-known, well-established city of diplomacy of. It's like wiping off one of the landmarks.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like a mother of us all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Could variously be the capital of that area, of that region. Mm-hmm. That was the place decisions being made,
Yeah.
and
I mean, I think
She-
she's just alluding to historical significance here.
right.
That's why I was trying to determine. I couldn't find anywhere, what little bit of looking I did, whether this actually tied back to the person of Abel in any way, or if it was just a name that was given. But it does mean Abel on the waters for what it's worth. Okay, so anybody else have any comment about how this lady handled this problem?
I think she may have looked into it, but she seems to be like a sage or an elder or an older, kind of a, I don't know how else to say it, but I look at that in verse, where is it?
19?
No, 22. Then the woman went unto all the people in her wisdom. I don't know. And the idea of them seeming to listen to her, one individual's advice, my guess is that she's probably somebody that, probably very old, and maybe, I don't know whether she's a prophetess or not, but certainly somebody who commanded a lot of respect. And so she probably was like the sage for that city.
Could have been a judge.
Yeah.
Yeah, she sort of reminds me of Abigail, who had a worthless husband, and she came forward with wise counsel to David, and there also prevented needless bloodshed.
Yeah.
And so perhaps would we say, or could we suppose that at times when a woman comes forward, it may be because she realizes that there's no man to stand in the gap and do what needs to be done, so they are the Lord's second line of defense, if you want to put it that way. And applying that to the local church, I think there needs to be an avenue, an opportunity for people in the congregation, even the women in a proper context, to share their wisdom. I appreciated Brother Kelly having the annual meetings where the ladies could present ideas, suggestions that would improve the church, as well as a meeting for the men, and he said some good ideas came from this. And so it's not just the elders that have all wisdom is not deposited at the top. Sometimes, or wisdom, we hopefully all are praying for wisdom and have some of that. And I have requested that the pastoral search committee not be overloaded with just deacons, but we have all views represented broadly. And
Just to add to what Brother Fred is saying there, she seemed to have been very seasoned, and to use the word mother, and she being a woman, it kind of like it makes it sticks a little bit better. I think we tend to listen to our mother, So I'm thinking these kind of things here. She laid this out very well, I think.
and it says in Proverbs, what with many counselors there is what?
Safety. All right, well, we've got to dismiss a little bit earlier today, so we get next door. We've got some food for us and some prayer time. And I apologize if I seemed a little scattered. I'm actually speaking next hour too, so those of you who stick around, I've got a little bit to say about how we use our words. So I'm going to introduce that idea and how we resist a little bit on that. So if you want to stick around for that, it'd be great. Pray for me though. If you don't, I appreciate it.
Let's have a song.
Okay, let's turn to page 423 if you need it. Solid Rock. We'll sing the first verse. Solid Rock. My hope is built on nothing less.
What number is that?
423. My hope is built on nothing less